Hello my friends and welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Revolt Vintage Designs. Last week I posted a video of products that I have purchased and hardly ever used or never used at all. And after doing that video, I realized how much money I've spent on products that I just put aside. Some weren't even opened. Now I'll be sure to link that video in the description box below so you can take a look for yourself. But one of the products that I'd not used at all was this Daniel Smith watercolor ground. And I purchased this because I saw another artist use it to correct a mistake in one of her paintings. And I thought, oh, I need this. So of course, as I mentioned in my previous video, I didn't buy the small container, I bought the large container. And in the comments of last week's video, one of my followers suggested that you can use ground on inexpensive watercolor paper so that it makes it better and easier to paint on. So here I have some Strathmore watercolor paper. This is pulp-based paper. It is 9 by 12, 140 pounds. Now I purchased this quite a while ago and it's just been sitting there. I never use it. So I thought this would be the perfect paper to try this on. So I read the instructions, I've got my brush, and I'm going to put a couple of nice thick coats on it and see how it works. Now you can see it's got this pasty consistency, and I'm just using an inexpensive brush that I use for acrylic to see how this turns out. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start painting it. I'm going to keep the right side with the ground and the left side without the ground. And then I have to let this dry for 24 hours. And once it's completely dry, we'll come back and we'll test it out and see how it goes. Okay, it is the next day and the paper is completely dry. I've pulled out the heavy guns here. I've got my Schmincke watercolor pan paints. And I have activated them with a little drop of water on each pan. So let's see how this works. First, I wanted to try the wet in wet technique, where you wet a section of the paper and then you drop in the paint, and the paint will blend with the water and give you this really nice effect. So I thought I would try that first. So again, to remind you, the left side is just the regular paper. And now I've wet it. I let it sit for a little bit, and now I'm dropping in a little bit of this blue color, which now I realize was not a good choice for this experiment, but well, here we are. So as I'm putting this down, I don't see that the paint is blending in with the water very nicely. I'm finding that I have to push it with the paintbrush to get it to go where I want it to be. I also found that the water basically just sits on top of the paper. So here I'm dropping in a little heavier consistency of the blue. And it's kind of blending with the water on the paper, but not very well. So now let's go over to the side with the Daniel Smith ground. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wet down the area. I'm going to let it sit for a moment so that it absorbs the water a little bit, and then I'll drop in some blue there. Okay, so I did let it sit for a little while. And I'm dropping in the blue, but I have to say I don't see that it is moving as well as I would have liked it to, like it would on Arches watercolor paper, which is 100% cotton. But it's not bad. It's definitely better than the left side. I also noticed that the pigment appears darker on the ground side than it does on the untreated side. So here I'm just using the brush to move the paint around to try and get more of the effect that I was hoping for. But you shouldn't have to do that. But still, I think it's better definitely than the left side. So I decided to give it another try. I thought maybe I let the water seep into the paper for too long. So here I'm not waiting as long, and I'm going to try it again I'm going to add the water to the paper, and then I'm going right into the pigment, and I'm going to start dropping it in to see if that makes a difference. And I think it did. I think that the trick was not to wait so long and to drop the paint in while the paper is still wet. But again, it's still not like working on 100% cotton watercolor paper. But it's definitely better than the left side. Alright, so now let's try painting a flower. I'm just picking up a shade of yellow here, and I'm going to make the center on each side. And I'm not going for perfection here. I just want to see how the paint reacts on each side, the treated side and the not treated side. So here I'm dropping a little bit of brown into the yellow paint, but the paint on the left-hand side, which is the untreated side, is really just sitting on top of the paper. It's not really absorbing into the paper. I did find that the right side with the ground on it, it does stay wetter a little bit longer, and it does absorb. So the paint is not just sitting on the surface. All right, let's paint in some petals. So as I'm painting in this petal, you can see that the color from the center of the flower is running into the petal because it is still sitting on the top of that paper like a little puddle. So every time I touch it with the tip of the brush, the color from the center starts to run into each of the petals. Now let's try on the right side. So you can see that when I touched the paper with the tip of the brush, the center of the flower, the color is still bleeding into the petal, but not nearly as much. I'm not getting the cauliflowers that I was getting on the left-hand side that you can see forming. So the paper was still wet, the paint was still wet in the center, but it had been absorbed a bit more into the paper than it did on the left side, if that makes sense. You can see it doesn't run into the petals as much as it did, again, because the paint was absorbed by the paper or the ground that I placed on the paper. Now let's add a stem. You can see the petal, the paint is just sitting on the top of the paper. It's not dry enough yet. So the stem color is bleeding into that petal. And on the right hand side, I didn't touch the petal. Now here I'm just using a green and creating a simple leaf. But I'm going to say it again. I notice that the color appears darker on the side with the ground. Now here I'm picking up this a little bit of indigo, and I want to drop it in to see how well it blends with the green that I have on the paper already. And I'm just using the tip of the brush to do the center vein there. And you can see that it's blending very nicely. I'm really surprised. So here I've picked up the same exact green, the same consistency, and I'm painting in a leaf, but you can see that the color does not appear as deep. So I'm trying to go over it to deepen the color a little bit, but it doesn't look the same. And then I picked up a little bit of the indigo to see how well it would blend with the green. But it really didn't do very much. As you can see, it's kind of just sitting there. So you can see that when I added the indigo to the leaf on the left, it kind of created cauliflowers, but on the right hand side it blended really nicely. And again, the pigment seems deeper in color. So now I just want to play a little bit and see what happens. I'm just going to create a simple leaf on one side. I'm using the same color, same consistency. And you can see the difference. It just looks so much better on the ground. I am so surprised by this. This would never have occurred to me. So I wish I had gotten the name of the follower who suggested I give this a try. Fortunately, I didn't, but you know who you are. Thank you so much for this idea. It was really interesting to see. Now here I'm just picking up a little bit of the darker color. I think I have a little sepia in there, maybe a little black, I'm not even sure. But I just wanted to see if I can paint some veins into the petals of this flower. And you can see that it's blending in with the petal itself because the paper is still kind of wet, but the paint is not sitting on the surface. Now here I'm trying it on the left-hand side, and you can see that the paper has dried and I'm getting very hard lines. It's not blending in very easily, which is still okay. So now I wanted to see how well you can lift. However, this color is a staining color, not a good color to try this with, but you can see that I can still lift a little bit. I'm just using a clean, damp brush, and I'm going over the area and then dabbing it up with a paper towel. So now I'm going to try it on the left-hand side. And it basically works the same, I would say. So here I'm trying to see if I can lift a little bit more. But again, this is a staining color, so it's not going to lift very well. But overall, it's not bad. Now here with the green, you can see how easily that lifted. And now I'm going to try it on the untreated side. And I have to say that it lifted just as easily, if not actually better, because the paint is not absorbed. It's just sitting on the surface of the paper. So now I'm just trying to see if I can get this a little bit more clear, remove more of the green. And after a couple of tries, I was really happy with it. I think it lifted very nicely. So now I wanted to see how well using ground can cover up this blue circle. And again, this was not a good color for this. And if you're painting, hopefully you won't make a mistake that large that you need to cover up. But I thought I'd give it a try. So I applied a couple of very light coats of the ground and I let it dry in between. And you can see with one coat it didn't cover so well. So here I am applying a second coat. So you can see I applied a couple of coats and I let it dry in between. And it was a little bit thick. I think I went a little too thick, but overall it really did cover it fairly well. I think that this is a product that I could definitely use. If I make a small mistake on a piece of art, I can cover it up with the ground and fix the problem. However, is this a product that I would purchase to cover my inexpensive pulp-based watercolor paper? Absolutely not. I would rather save my money and buy 100% cotton watercolor paper. But this is definitely something that I will use to correct any small mistakes. I think this is a great product. I think it made a big difference. You can see for yourself the left from the right side. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed experimenting with this. And the goal for 2024 is to try all the products that I showed in my previous video and decide whether it's something that I want to keep or maybe donate. So I think that overall, I would say that this is a great product. It worked very well. I was really surprised by it. So if you have some in your stash, give it a try as well. I think you might be surprised. All right, everyone, let me know if you have any other suggestions on ways that I can use this product. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your interaction with my channel is really helpful and very much appreciated. Also, check out our Facebook group, Vivo Vintage Design Tutorials, where you can post your versions of the paintings and techniques learned on this channel. All right, everyone, thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.